Hello, beautiful souls. So, today I want to go through a conversation to share this with you. Just give me 1 second. I gotta get something. I completely forgot to do this. Okay, so just give me a second. Because I lose so much, I want to get it on my phone just to make sure that I don't lose you like sometimes I do when I am talking and don't realize that I'm offline, which has happened to me several times. So I want to talk today about the Unquiet Dead and some of the things that we have channeled information on as a medium channeler. I have done some workshops and conversations here on YouTube, and I want to go over some of those things because what I found fascinating is that I haven't heard of this person before, Dr. Edith Fiore. Um, I haven't read her books, but a lot of the information that even Alan Kardec has on his book is very similar, even though Alan Kardec was Spiritismo and talking about mediumship and all of that. This Dr. Fiore, a lot of the stuff that she talks about is basically the same. And she's basically into hypnosis, and she was a doctor, a psychologist, and went into hypnosis as a more faster way of working to heal and remove entities from people that were having issues, depression, even multiple personality issues, triggers, alcoholism, and stuff like that. And she developed, worked on her practice to remove these entities. And I find that fascinating because if you really go into reading or understand the astral planes from the median channeler perspective, you will understand things that normally people wouldn't understand unless they have access to those planes of existence in a way that they can actually study those planes. It's not just reading them, you have to study those planes. But what she did is that through her clients, she learned about those things, even though she wasn't a believer. So because she wasn't a believer, that's why I find this fascinating, because it really is a great book if you're interested in understanding more about earthbound entities, disembodied energies, low astral plane energies that are basically transition, half transition, and they're stuck. So today in this conversation, I want to address the spirit hospitals, the earthbound spirits, which are the obsessor spirits, which we talked about before in different conversations here in this platform. But I also want to talk about how it can affect mediums that are what I call them repressed mediums, people that haven't accepted their abilities and they try to push things away because they're afraid of them. And the earthbound entities tend to attach to those type of people that are afraid or that have abilities but they haven't developed them, because it's easier to attach to those people that are no understanding. So we're going to talk about that as well. I'll try to make this as quick as I can. So the current personality, even Alan Kardec knew this, and people from the 1800s understood it. And if you're into the astral plane, then you can go into the astral plane and see and analyze things from the astral planes. You also understand very, very seriously this concept. When the person dies, the personality that they had doesn't go away. That personality stays with them in the astral plane. From, if you want to call it a fourth dimension, we can call it that if it's easier. But when somebody transitions and die, they don't go, their personality doesn't go away. It stays with them, which is why the earthbound spirits tend to attach to other people that have broken their auric field. And we all know that we have the auric bodies, the light bodies. In Hinduism, they call it the seven vehicles, the seven chakras. There is channel information that there is more than seven, but seven are the basic ones, and like the light bodies, the pranic, auric body, and so on, right? The etheric body, when all of those bodies are somehow punctured, they may be broken, they might be punctured because there is a traumatic event that happens that punctures your auric and pranic and different light bodies. And when that happens, airbound entities can attach themselves to you. And we talked about this before, this is nothing new, but I want to do this review so that you can understand exactly why she makes sense, because they also understood this from a psychiatric and psychologist perspective. So not only we have mediums and people like Allan Kardec and other well-known writers from the 17, 1800s and so on, but also information from even the Tibetan Book of the Dead and the Egyptian Book of the Dead and so on, that they were performing exorcism because of the earthbound spirits. When you go into the astral plane, you are very savvy in these planes. You can study things that normally you wouldn't find in books, which is fascinating when you see it in a book, because it gives you not only confirmation, because we all want confirmation, but it also gives you a different perspective from the other side that doesn't understand the astral planes like you do, because you might be in it and studying the different planes and the different levels within the astral planes. So to see it from a medical point of view is quite fascinating, to be honest. So I really did enjoy that book. So when the light bodies are punctured, they get, there is an attack, there is a traumatic event that happens that makes the light body, one of the beautiful ways that I have seen this in quantum healing when I have clients that have traumatic events, is that they say their higher self says they were drinking too much, so I couldn't stay, because that energy, that um the what happens when somebody drinks is that all the light bodies are basically punctured, and the higher self cannot be in that low frequency, it cannot reside in that low frequency, so it kind of moves to the side until you're done, and then when the effect is over, the higher self comes back. I find that completely fascinating, because it's not just one person that has said this in the sessions that I have done, but other people that are also doing different type of soul regression and quantum healing have found the same thing that I have seen in my own practices with my clients. Other people have found in their own practices where their clients are telling them the same thing. The higher self kind of goes to the side, goes away, and comes back. And not only that, because not only the higher self can go and stay to the side until the vibration comes back to normal. Once you stop doing the drugs, alcohol, or eating, like let's say you're eating a lot of fried food, that higher self it might not stay with you, because your frequency got so low that they cannot reside in that frequency, and it can harm them. If you have higher selves that are extremely ascended, what's going to happen is that they have to leave you for the time being, so that they can not get hurt, and then they come back in order to reunite with you. When they leave you because you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing, is when earthbound entities can come in and attach themselves to you, and now you have a problem that you have to deal with as a result, because remember, everything in this planet is cause and effect. So this cause and effect law says, well, you at a higher level, you knew that you shouldn't do that, now you did, and now you have to deal with the consequences. And I find that completely fascinating. So within the low and the high and the medium and all the levels within the astral planes, and we just say low, medium, and high because it's for simplicity, but within the astral planes there's so many different levels. And it can also be argued that even the Akashic records are within the mid and high planes of within the astral plane. So we can go all day on this, but basically within the astral planes there are spirit resting places, and there are spirits within the astral planes that come and grab the people, the energies that need to go through purification and transition in order for them to understand what they did and what they didn't do and what was the plan and how they got lost and all of this stuff. And these resting places are basically like a review stage where there are spirit counselors and spirit doctors that in hospitals that are there for the purpose of purifying that being so that it can go through its process and eventually reincarnate. And the reason why this is important is because sometimes the earthbound energies will see that these people are waiting for them and are calling and trying to pull them, but they're so afraid of being judged that they don't think that they can go through that without being punished, and that punishment is what they're afraid of. So when we work in 21 divisions or any other practice with spirit releasement, what you will see is that normally there is no a communication, there is no this communication where a nice communication that happens where is you're going into this almost like convincing the person that energy that they need to go to the light. What we tend to do most of the time is just take them and send them there because they have to, like they just gotta go. But there is also a spirit releasement therapy where we enter into a conversation where we basically help the entity understand that their love, that they will be accepted, that when they go through it, they're actually going to feel really good and all of that. And in this book, you will find that that's exactly what they focus on, helping the spirit understand that everything is okay, that their loved ones are waiting for them so that they can go to the light. And once they go to the light, they are no longer earthbound. But everyone is very complex. And when we go through traumatic events, what happens is sometimes your spirit might not be earthbound, but your soul personalities might be earthbound. And there will be a residue, what we call a residue of that trauma that might split off from the higher self, from the soul, from the spirit, and now attach themselves to another person. So you might feel things that you don't understand, things that you just don't know why you feel them because you never went through that here in this life here now, and you don't realize it might be coming from a residue or an earthbound spirit that is attached to you or attached to the auric field or the pranic field. What happens is all of these layers are bodies, and let's say you do something wrong and they only attach to the outer part, they can only influence a tiny little bit. They're waiting for the next time where you do something that you shouldn't do in order for them to be, for the auric field to be open so that they can continue to penetrate in. When they get to the physical body is when they actually become very, they give you very obsessive thoughts. And that's when you can really get really nasty because at that point they basically have a pretty good hold on the person, and you will need to do a lot of more therapy than someone that just basically has an energy that is attached to one of the outer bodies instead of the physical body where they can actually go into your mind and help you, and well, not help you, they will make you think and do things that you don't want to do. So they are, and I'm going to answer that question. I'm looking at it from my phone here. I'm going to answer that question in a little bit. Thank you for asking that question. That's a great question. The question is it true that when you cry, you keep the spirit earthbound? And honestly, the short answer is yes. And we can go into that more in a little bit. So the current personality of the energy that died, the person that died, doesn't go away. That's why when they come and attach to you, whatever traumas, whatever triggers, whatever things they liked, you're going to start doing. you're going to start experiencing those things. So, for example, let's say somebody was very much, she couldn't leave because she loved the baby so much, and the baby was a newborn, she couldn't leave, so she can come back and attach herself to the baby, the mother, without knowing, without not knowing, because they know, they just don't think that they're going to do harm at that time, but eventually it becomes very damaging. And they are earthbound spirits that for good reasons will attach themselves to someone that they think that they're helping, and they might help the person for some time, but after a while it becomes not a good situation, and instead of helping them, they're just creating chaos, because you have two people in one body, two minds in one body. So some people, there have been cases where people, start liking the same sex, and they don't realize that it's because maybe an entity that they have attached to them. Some people will start feeling very off about their partners because the person that is attached to them is of the same sex. So if I'm a woman, and I have a woman, but I like men, or I don't like men, and I have a partner that is the opposite sex, I could be triggered to not like that person. So it can be very complicated, and it doesn't mean that every person that is lesbian or bisexual or whatever is has this problem. I'm just giving you an easy example. So let's say somebody that likes to eat a lot of ice cream, but you don't like ice cream, and then out of nowhere you notice that you're really looking forward to the ice cream, and it's like, I need ice cream, I want ice cream. Well, that might be an energy that is trying to influence you. And what happens with the repressed mediums, people that have abilities and they repress it, is that we become very open, because a lot of the mediums basically are empathic, and when you're empathic, you have, it's like you become a magnet. So it's almost like a flag. Hey, I'm here, but you don't realize that you're flagging the wrong things. And a lot of people that pass muertos have to be very careful with this, because they don't realize that sometimes those muertos will be like, oh, I like her, or I like him, and they stay, and you don't realize that they stay, because you're not developed enough to realize that actually they didn't go away. And the best way to actually communicate with spirit is to project them on a screen. Don't let them come through you, because that can be very dangerous. And a lot of people that love to go into trance, they will be like, come through me, and they don't realize that if you're inviting disembodied energies, earthbound spirits, what you're doing is giving them the opportunity for them to find a new homes, and that can be you. So the best way to go and develop your skill is to project in a screen. You don't want them to take full control of your body, because then you basically allow them to, you become a host basically. Once you say, come through me, they might misunderstand that invitation, and instead of you thinking, oh, it's only going to be 2 minutes, you don't realize that in their mind, the call was, come to me because I can be your new home. So yeah, I hope that's making sense, and I'm not losing you. Please let me know in the comments. So the halls of learning within the astral planes are places where they actually go through analyzing with counseling, with spirit counselors, spirit doctors, and they go through different hospital schools, spirit schools, and spirit hospitals. And it's almost like another planet in the astral plane, where they're going through the process of understanding, so that they can understand. When they understand, then they connect back to source, so that they can understand what is the next mission. So from the whole halls of learning in the astral plane, you review the past life, and then you go into the higher planes to get ready for the next life. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. I wanted to also talk about different psychiatrists that have become hypnotherapists, because they see the power of the hypnosis, where the person, there is a very big misalignment in the medical field, where the different doctors, they treat the physical and some of the emotional, but they don't understand that a lot of the emotions and the traumas come from very recent, or very ancient, or very childhood or past lives, or different realities. And that's when it can get a little gray, because even Edgar Casey was one of the ones from these 1900s that said, you can heal. In order for you to heal the traumas, the physical traumas, you have to heal the soul scars. And those scars, those things that are that need to be healed in the soul level, come from the spiritual and the emotional. That's why you will see that in our sessions, for those that have been my clients or done past life or quantum healing or some soul regression therapy, that we ask about how you're feeling, because when you feel, you can tap into the emotion. We are not healing what you're seeing, we're healing how you feel in the moment, to release that feeling so that it can no longer grab you and keep you in a low vibration, because those feelings that are traumatic keeps you in a low vibration. And those things that happen that are very traumatic, let's say you have a very traumatic life here, guess what? The next life, if you don't heal those things here, those traumas are recorded at the soul level in your own soul. And those recordings are like imprints. So when you go into a future life, you have to deal with those things, even though you went through your purification process in the astral plane. Those, it's very convoluted. This is not simple. We are very intricate humans and spirits. So when you think of this, all of these traumatic experience, and the problem is that most of the time we don't see those traumatic experience properly. We only see them from one view, and we don't see the other sides and the higher side and the low side. So our view is very distorted of what happens sometimes. Sometimes we don't understand that, and this might be a trigger for some of you, but let me say this, even though it might be triggering. What we notice in quantum healing, in some of the sessions that we have done here, with especially some of the people that have seen me for more than one session, when they actually deal with the trauma, and a lot of this can be physical and sexual abuse, the origin of the trauma is in another life. And until you go into that life, and then from that life, you can go into the previous life where those people were together. And the more you go into the previous and previous and previous life, you see how it all started, because then you have the two-person perspective, which brings a lot of healing, because you see the duality. You might have been abused in this life, but in a past life, perhaps you were the abuser, or maybe it was in a previous life. So there are sequences that follow. And when we see that, I mean, I had a client, he has had a lot of challenges here in this life. And when we went into a past life, he was one thing, and in another life, he was the opposite. He was in one life, he was the abuser. In another one, he was the one being abused. In the previous life, it just kept turning and turning, because in every life they couldn't heal those traumas. So it kept snowballing, but it was supposed to be handled before. But because it wasn't handled properly, in this life, he's still dealing with the same traumas, where he has been the abuser and the abuse. So you can see how this keeps snowballing unless it's being treated. So, and what happens sometimes, and a lot of people don't realize that what happens sometimes is that when you're having those traumas, those experiences, the person might be, let's say, somebody's physically hitting you, because it's so painful. The soul, there is a part of your soul that says, no, I cannot be here. So it comes out and moves to the side, into the body, is done being abused, physically abused. When it's done, it might come back, or it might say, I don't think I can go back in. So now you have a split of your soul that is standing still, frozen in time, to the side, waiting for you to come back and pick it up when it's safe, because he doesn't realize that it's no longer safe, that it's okay to be back in the body because he's no longer in trouble. But that split in that moment thinks that he's still in trouble, and you have to be the one that says, and you got back and pick it up. So that's what we call soul retrieval when we go to different places, and depending on the traumas that are happening, and sometimes it's in other planets, it's not here, in past life, it's not in this life necessarily. Maybe this is a trigger for you to understand maybe something's happening in another part of you, in another parallel reality or a past life, but the trigger and the trauma and the split happen at another time. It can be, some of the splits can happen here, and we have seen people that have been split it many times, not just once. So you, and that's why sometimes you feel like you're not complete, like something is missing, because your soul isn't 100%. There's splits that are might be floating around in different places, and then we can go and retrieve those pieces so that you can feel complete. And I think we talked about a similar concept before, so I hope I'm not using you. There was a famous psychiatrist, Carl Wickland, something like that. But he was also a spiritist, and he was an exorcist, and he was a psychiatrist. And what he was doing was that he was helping the person. He put a the concept out there that the person that you are here now, when you transition, if you don't go through spiritual elevation here now, when you transition, unless you have spirits that are of the light that are waiting for you, which is always the case, but if you don't recognize them and are willing to go with them, you get stuck and you stay in that place with the same personality, right? Because you stay in that place with in the low astral planes with the same personality. If there are beings of the dark that come and get you, they can now initiate you into the darkness. And when you attach to a human that is alive, not only you're dealing with someone that is an airbound spirit, but you're also dealing with someone that has been initiated into the darkness. And there have been a lot of cases about this, and you can research him. I think he is Kyle Wickland or something like that. And you can find, maybe he wrote a book, I don't remember, but you can see that these people that are doctors that understand and have studied medicine have also understood the astral planes and have done depositions to release earthbound spirits and dark entities. And truly it is interesting that we have this combination of people that are very much into medicine, understanding that sometimes the traditional way to do things is it's not like you're going to replace medicine, but there are things that can help you speed up your healing process, because when that person leaves the physical plane, the body that stays behind is there. But the people that they care for, if they are having issues letting go, or if that person is not ready to go because they feel like those people cannot make it without them, they're going to be attached to them, one or multiple person, and change from one person to another. And that's why you see some families have similar, like there might be a family or of a group of people, and those people have similar challenges because one entity is floating around from one to another and doing rounds, so it can be really complicated. A lot of the imprints and triggers that happen when they are recorded, even at the soul level, when you come back, because you're coming back to deal with it in a different way, what you find is that it can go on for many lifetimes unless you have the help, because it's not, honestly, it's not easy. You have to be very much aware, and that's why we get trapped in that karma cycle, because it's very hard to recognize when you are being, when you have something attached, and you can recognize these things with your that pattern. Why do I have this obsessive compulsion to do something that it doesn't make sense. It's not for your highest good. Are you drinking too much? Are you overeating? Are you watching porn? Do you have a desire and urge to have sexual intercourse with people that you probably don't even know? You just need it. Anger, jealousy, think of any dark, low vibration feelings and thoughts and emotions, and if you're there, then you know that you probably have your aura, has been, um, affected somehow, and therefore it's very possible that either these things are disembodied energies or they're astral bacteria that you need to deal and cleanse and release and move and from you. Now the problem is that if you have an energy, a lot of people are saging all the time, but those spirits might leave you. They might go for another a week or two, maybe even a month, because in the astral planes there is no time, right? So what is a month for you might be minutes for them, and they come back and you're like, what? I'm dealing with this again, because those energies didn't go to the light. They were moved out from the space, but they were not sent to the light. Once you send something to the light, it will not come back because it's no longer an earthbound energy. Does that make sense? Like, please let me know in the comments, because I don't know if I'm going too fast. But people will be, even with the baths, right? We do bath, we do prayers, we do things, but if you have earthbound entities and you don't send them to the light and you just move them out of your space, you really didn't do much. You just help for a little bit. But those, because everybody has an energetic signature, within that signature, if they're already attached to you, they already know you, so they can find you again. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you push them out for a little bit. They can come back easily because they haven't crossed over. Once they cross over, they cannot come back and haunt you or influence you negatively like that, because they already crossed over and they already have gone through their purification process, so they're no longer attached to anything in the planes, in the physical plane, so that you don't have to worry about that. But what you do have to worry is about making sure that you keep your vibration high, so that you don't invite other energies once you have released the one that you have, because a lot of people work on one and they might be getting so drunk that they pass out and energy comes over, do their things through them, and now they're attached, because that's how they attach themselves. Does that make sense? Like, once you do it once doesn't mean that you're going to stop. You got to keep your vibration high, because that is the best way to make sure. I think she had a story here, or was it another book? I don't remember, about someone going into, this beautiful girl is at the beach, and beautiful vibration and energy, and airbound energy sees her and sees that she's happy, so she's like, I think she will be a nice host to have. So she attaches to the outer body, the light bodies, and little by little the person started getting a little depressed, to the point that they got really depressed. And the earthbound entities, when under hypnosis, says, well, at the beginning it was fun, the person was very nice and light and fun, but then he got really depressed, and I just don't know how to get out. I, the earthbound wanted to leave but didn't know how to. So, we have all of those different situations going on. So again, this book I highly recommend it for those that want to see it from a hypnosis and psychologist background. This is the book here, and it's a good book. I read it in less than 2 days. She has a lot of different examples of what happened with her with her um, with her clients, and how they send the spirit to the light and all of that. And I just found that interesting, because it wasn't coming from a spiritual person. This person is not spiritual at all, and she's just a doctor who, once she saw how powerful hypnosis was, she decided to leave her regular practice and go into full time into hypnosis. So I just wanted to share this with you, and you can grab it on Amazon. And yeah, to answer your question about when you cry, you keep the spirit here. Yes, you do, because the person, the earthbound entity, what happened is, and we see it every day in quantum healing, the person goes to a past life, and we bring them to the point where they are going through the death, and they see the death, and then they're out of body. Once they're out of body, they can evaluate their life and all of that. So assume that this is your parents, aunt, daughter, whatever, nephew, and you are, you know, you have transition and you're out of body. And what you will know in a lot of stories from home, from the Dominican Republic, is that the person knows that they're ready to transition, and they start calling people, saying goodbyes. You might not realize that that's what they're doing. They start calling and saying, for example, my grandmother said goodbye to my aunt and said, this is the last time that you're going to do this for me. And my aunt is like, what are you talking about? I'll do this all the time. And when we were sharing stories, she's like, that's how she said goodbye to me. Yeah, this happens all the time, especially if they have a lot of spiritual evolution. They're going to know, they can feel it, and they know, okay, this is happening, so I'm going to prepare by saying goodbye. The more people that they care for, that they say goodbye to, the less chances that they feel like they didn't say goodbye, and therefore they have to attach themselves to here. But then, oh my goodness, we cry because we don't want that person to go, and we're selfish because that person is already in another plane. If they're already gone, they're already on another plane. But we're crying because of us, our selfishness of not having them here in this physical body. And that creates a lot of trauma, because they see you, they stay around for a period of time to observe what happens. And if you have people that are extremely upset about the transition, those energies have a harder time moving. When those lights come for them, the spirits that are coming to welcome them, they see the lights, but they see you crying, they have to make a choice, and that's when they stay. And they will have other times when the lights will come, but if they miss the chance, they can get lost, and they might not understand when the next opportunity comes. So to answer the question, is that's definitely a big yes. So I'm gonna leave it here because I really have to go, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you so much.